Here it is, 2017 Indian Scout and 5 years of ownership. So, April 2022, exactly 5 years ago this month, I got this Indian Scout. So here it is, 2017 Indian Scout, all stock, no performance upgrades. Quite a formidable machine right from the get-go. Now those of you who are familiar with Polaris, who took over the Indian name, brought this Scout moniker back in 2015. The Indian Scout is the premier motorcycle in the Indian lineup for the original motor company. From 1920 to 1949, the Indian Scout was number one for Indian. So Polaris revived the name, revived the model, and I have to say, they did an awesome job. So this bike stock comes with 100 horsepower and 72 foot-pound of torque. What made it really nice is a beefy stance and the fat front tire. Fat rear tire too. Just gave it a different look than a normal everyday cruiser. And that's why I picked this mid-size as a purchase for me. So let's talk about 5 years of ownership, the things I've experienced, and what you can expect from Indian Motorcycle. So here is the original bill of sale from the day I bought the bike in April. And the bike listed for $12,899. You had your dealer freight of $795, and then you had tax, tags, title, all that good stuff. And I did add some accessories at the time because Indian was doing a $500 dealer credit when I purchased the bike. So for $12,899, you got Indian Scout's mid-size cruiser. Now the Scout came out in 2015, and I waited a little bit just to see how the first run would do before I decided to go ahead and get to 2017. Let's talk about this bike from a few different factors: aesthetics, reliability, handling, performance, fun factor, and overall cost of maintenance after 5 years. Let's see if the Indian Scout is the bike and choice for you. So first, aesthetics. So when I got this bike, it had the drag style bars, the stock seat. Obviously it didn't have a sissy bar, but the overall lines of the bike are exactly the same the day it sat on the showroom floor. So that was the first thing that I really liked about this bike. I changed the rims immediately and put on the laced wire wheels with the white walls just because that's the look I wanted. The stock Kendra tires that come with this bike are like any other stock tire, not the best. And the alloy rims, they looked fine, but just wasn't the look that I wanted. The stock bars I took off and put on these 10-inch mini apes, as you can see, because what that did is it allowed me as the rider to have a little bit more of an upright position, which was much more comfortable for cruising and riding. So from an overall aesthetic standpoint, I think the Scout is simply hard to beat. So let's jump into what you really want to know. Is the Scout reliable? Well, from 2017 to 2019, I rode this bike with 0 issues. Just changed the oil and had fun. In 2019, there was a service advisory about a particular starter issue. So one day I was at the gas station, went to fire up the bike, hit the starter, and it was chug, 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 chug. I didn't know about the advisory at the time, so I thought it was the battery. Went and changed the battery, didn't solve the problem. Took it right back to the dealer. That's when they made me aware that there was a recall on the starter. I never got stranded, didn't have a problem. The Indian dealer that I was luckily a part of, they were awesome. They replaced the starter under warranty, no issues, never had a problem since to this day, 0 issues. So if you want to call that an issue or a recall, that could be number 1. Number 2, total freak thing. Month later, February, I was on a highway, major interstate down south, going about 60, 65 miles an hour in 5th gear. Rolling along, and there was a way I could either go straight and stay on the highway or get off the exit on the right. I don't know why. I was going to get off the exit on the right, which was about 5 miles away from my Indian dealer, which was 35 miles from my house. So don't ask me why I decided to go that way, but luckily I did. Because as I went to get off, I went to downshift, and the shifter was flapping around like crazy. I had no gears. I thought, okay, I'm about 3 miles from my dealership on a 2-lane highway. There's 2 red lights. Am I gonna make it? So I got off the exit on the 2-lane highway in 5th gear, slowing down 50, 45, 40. Saw the first light, it was green. I was like, okay, good, we got it. Rolled through that, no problem. I was coming up about 1.5 miles to go. The dealership was on the right hand side. Next red light, coming up to it. Of course it was red. Slowing down 30, 25, keeping the clutch in, keeping the throttle on just so the bike won't stall. And that's when I thought this bike was amazing. I got down to just about 20 miles an hour. The light turned green, and I still had enough in 5th gear from 20 miles an hour on torque to work the clutch, give it throttle, and hit enough to actually coast into the dealership, park it, and take it in to see what the problem was. That's where this bike to me really came through. So that's issue number 2, and I'll tell you what it was. There I was on the highway. This thing was just flapping around like a sail. I took it in and they said it was the shifter ratchet assembly failed. Just one of those things. So fortunate enough that they replaced that under warranty. That's what, 2019 that happened, so several years later, no problems, not anything. Now that could have stranded me, and that could have been a way worse deal if I was far away, but that's the first time that's ever happened to me on a bike. I don't know about you guys, but call that a failure? Absolutely. Was it a big problem? Not at the time. I got lucky. From a reliability standpoint, starter recall, shifter ratchet assembly. Other than that, I've changed the oil, changed the tires, and this bike has been extraordinarily reliable. I've never had any other problems, and I highly recommend this bike. Definitely, I'd give it, because of the 2 little issues I had, I'd give it a 4 out of 5 for reliability. Now, the other thing I did since then, in March, I took it in for the 10,000 mile service, and I'll tell you what they covered there. March 21st, 2020, 10,000 mile service, and I'll just read what they did. Now, a lot of you out there are going to say, oh, they didn't do all that. I actually know they did this because I was actually friends with the dealer people. The service guy I got to know pretty well, and I waited for it, and I went back there and I saw what they were doing. So 10,000 mile service. Inspect crankcase, ventilation system, oil lines, air filter, brake lines, exhaust system, spark plugs. Check for diagnostic codes. Battery, brake fluid, clutch lever, rear axle, drive bolt, tires, wheels, fuel system, electrical equipment, gauges, switches, and then road test. So they lube the clutch lever, front brake lever, side stand, oil change, filter, all that good stuff. Flush the brake fluid, and that cost, let's see here, labor was $350, and then you had the parts. So all in, it was $494.80, and that was March of 2020. And here we are, March 2022, 0 issues. I just changed the oil. So cost of maintenance on this bike, I'd actually rank it as low. There's really nothing you have to do other than change your tires and change the oil. On to the next one. For the next stage, let's talk about the fun factor of this bike. And the only way I know how to do the fun factor on this bike is, let's take it out on the road and talk about it. Alright, time to talk about the fun factor. And like I said, the aesthetics on the Scout, perfect. Let's fire it up. Cold start. Put these gloves on and get to the fun factor of the 2017 Indian Scout. Alrighty, fun factor, Scout. This is the most fun bike I have ever owned. The handling, the balance, 5 out of 5. I've taken this bike, I think my max was 442 mile day. You know, no problem. Now, I don't have the stock seat. I have a Mustang Solo seat. Highly recommend that, because the stock seat, 80 miles and you are going to be numb. So $279, the upgrade to the Mustang Solo seat, well worth it. So, you know, you can tour on this bike. It's probably not the most optimal just from storage, but I put my Viking bags on there and I was good. 442 miles with your gas stops, zero problem. But where the Scout is, whoa, all the stuff bouncing off this thing in front of me, this trailer. Where the Scout really shines, see the passing, bam, super easy. Where the Scout really shines and comes into play is if you're ripping across the highway, no problem, but you can go into canyons and carve them, twisties, back roads. I mean, this is just an all-around fun bike. So fun factor, 10 out of 5, but for this purpose, 5 out of 5 for sure. The handling on this bike is superb. The engineering, the power to weight ratio, 550 pounds wet, the aluminum frame, I mean, it's just phenomenal. Now, the only knock that you hear a lot of people say about the Scout is the stock suspension, 3 inches of travel, I think 2.5 on the bobber. But I mean, depending on your weight and how you ride, have I bottomed out a couple times? Yeah, absolutely. But it is what it is. I mean, overall, I'll give the suspension a 3.5, 4 out of 5 for what I do and how I ride. And I'm over 200 pounds, and honestly, it's really not that bad an issue. So, you know, again though, for, I don't know, $400 to $600, you could remedy that issue if it really is a problem for you. But other than the cosmetic stuff that I've done to this bike is stock. There's no aftermarket performance on the engine. I put slip-ons on, but you know, that may have given it a little more oomph, but for the most part, this bike is stock. So if you are out there in the market for an Indian Scout, whether it's used or new, I can't recommend this bike enough. You will not be sorry. You will never say, man, I really wish I would have bought that Scout. You know, and then there's all the iterations of the Scout, the Bobber 20, the Rogue, the Icon series, the Scout 60. I prefer this Scout, 1133cc, 69 cubic inch, just because you can customize it the most for what I wanted to do. But you know, the Bobber has a cool look, but you're going to sacrifice some comfort, because that stock seat on the Bobber is atrocious, and it's a very aggressive riding position. So you know, all depends on what you're looking for. So fun factor on the Scout, without doubt, oh yeah, the Scout is a beast, no question about it. I mean, aesthetics, back to that, I mean, just look, such an awesome looking bike. So let's get on and have some more fun. Other factors with this Scout here, you hear people complain about it too, is the tank. 3.3 gallon tank. It's a big tank. They probably could have fit a little more in, but look, it is what it is. You're not buying this bike to rip off iron butts every day. So depending on how you ride, reasonable to expect. I've gotten pretty much 45 to 48 miles a gallon on this bike. The best I've done when I really took it slow and rode on the highway was like 55 miles a gallon, so really not too bad. So, and you're going to stop every 120 miles anyway, just to take a break, get off the bike, stretch your legs, grab something to drink or whatever. So 3.3 gallon tank, could have been a bigger, yeah, it could have been, but wow, that was the fun factor. Riding this bike, like I said, if I could give it a 10 out of 10, I would. But for this sakes, 5 out of 5 all day long. The Indian Scout, if you're thinking about buying it, you will not be disappointed. Do it. If you already own a Scout, let me know if you think you agree with me, and if you don't, let me know why. And if you hate Indian, well, I can't help you out, but that's kind of funny too. If I had to buy another Indian Scout, would I do it? 100% yes, all day long. Thanks for watching. And don't forget,
I am Anonymous Biker USA.